right, hello, and welcome back to the Leadership Circle. And today we're going to have a really fun conversation about um, building your business around your life, which is something that is really important to us. So be in the room. One of our core values is both and we very much believe that you can be both incredible at your career and your job and your business, and be as present and active in your home life as you desire to be. So that's a really big value of ours. And so we're going to chat with the amazing Katie Mae. And so she is a marriage and relationship coach. She's become a dear friend of mine. She shares really excellent information with her people, but she's also grown this business with two small kids and a partner who has a very busy schedule that's demanding and changes a lot, and is still built a successful and thriving business. So Katie, I'm excited to chat today.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's first start with just like a quick introduction of who Katie is and what you do, and then we'll kind of talk about how you have built this really cool life and business that works together beautifully.
Yeah. So, like you said, I'm a marriage and relationship coach and mentor. Let's see, where did I start? Where's the story? I never thought I would ever be here. Let's just say that. That's the first part of my story. I knew I have a background in human and family development from ASU. I just knew I wanted to help people. I had no idea what that would ever look like. I almost became a therapist. That I was on the track for a master's program, and I almost started it. And I got to like the first class, and I was like, this just isn't right. And God really used me as just like a chess piece. I look backwards now, right? Hindsight's always 20/20, and I can see why he landed me where I am now. And it took my marriage just about falling apart in order for me to realize where I belonged. So long story short was my husband and I had been through like 4 different marriage therapists before we hit our absolute worst time. And through that process, it landed me with a job because I was a stay-at-home mom for a big part of our journey with my son. At that time, he was like 3. And I ended up finding a new job in order to support myself as a pending, soon-to-be single mother. That introduced me into the life of coaching. And I was a high-performance consultant. I was working with entrepreneurs from all levels. And I realized through my own growth, through my own development, because I couldn't control what happened with my marriage, I just could control me, that this is what marriages need. This is what relationships really truly need and thrive off of. Is we need to stop focusing so much on the other person, stop focusing so much on the relationship itself, and start really getting honest with ourselves and how we show up in our lives each and every day across the board. And that is when we can be great for our relationships, and we attract the relationships that will be great for us. So that is how I ended up getting started.
Yes. And so did you, I guess I don't know this. Did this realization become before or after Harper? Were you still employed when you had Harper?
I was still employed while I was pregnant with Harper. Yeah. So this was because, I mean, when we really were at our bad spot, the first thing I did was like therapy. I got to go to therapy for sure. And don't get me wrong, I got nothing against therapy. It's extremely important. Find a good one. And I'm a huge fan of it for you personally. I'm not a great fan of it for the relationship model. So yes, we had reunified through my own work in therapy, and we're doing very well. We then got pregnant with Harper, and then I was like, well, sure, it's a perfect time to start a business. I have a 6-year-old and I'm pregnant, like, and we're in a pandemic, so naturally, like, when else did you?
So yeah, so that's a lot, right? And so that's like, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I know there's so much to it, but let's talk about like, how have you been able to balance all the things? Because if I understand it correctly, obviously little dude is in school, so that handles a lot of your time. But in the summers, you are, you don't do a lot of childcare really at all, right? Harper's been home with you this entire time, and you've managed to build this business around your kids in a pandemic. What have you done that has allowed you to do that? What do you prioritize? How have you really been able to do that?
So So first of all, Harper has not been home with me the entire time. I do have childcare because
Okay.
I do not know how people do that.
Okay. Okay.
I First of all, the biggest piece of advice I have to anyone wanting to design their own life, which we are all here for,
Sure.
is know your limitations. And my limitations was there's no way I am actually running a successful business with a small infant. So the first part, actually, when I started to start my business, was I was pregnant. My son was home, and we were on lockdown. We were in a pandemic. So I got moved to working full time at home. My husband's season was canceled, so he actually helped look out after him. Now, on a day to day basis, now fast forward, what, 2 years from now, from then, my daughter I take Mondays and Fridays off.
Okay.
I work Tuesdays through Thursdays. Those are my client days, like networking days, whatever, right? Except for an occasional Monday when I do interviews like this. And my husband takes over the slack. But I intentionally did not want to do a 9 to 5 day week. Like, that was something that I was like, I really want. And it's funny because I've talked to fellow entrepreneurs, and they're like, you only work 3 days a week? Like, oh, lucky you. Like, aren't you living the life? And I'm like, yeah, you should try it. Like, we actually have the choice in how we do this. Like, way back when my very first experience in trying to run a business was I signed up to be part of an MLM.
Sure.
My background was in sales. I believed in the product. I was like, this is going to be so easy. And I lost my shit. I was a stay-at-home mom at that time, and I was trying to do all the things and make all the sales and whatever, right? And I realized, like, this is just not possible.
Right.
But that's what we do, right? Like, we focus in on the outcome versus the process. And so, lo and behold, in designing this venture, I knew, like, I need to back up. So I like to spend time with deathbed Katie.
Okay. Not morbid at all, my friend. Not morbid at all. But let's talk about deathbed Katie.
I love how morbid it is because I'm like, if you guys know me at all, I'm all about the joy, find the joy, create the joy, right? And it's like, but let's talk about the deathbed, shall we? Because she has no fear, and she has nothing to lose, and she has a lot of wisdom. So I always encourage people to spend time with their deathbed selves, because if you're fast forwarding, looking at yourself, end of life, if you can turn back around and look at yourself now, what do you really want? What do you really value?
Ooh, I think that's an interesting question. What do you want? And what do you value? Because those are two different things. We focus a lot on what we want, but it's like, okay, but what do I value? Like, we might say, I want a multiple six-figure business, but then the second question is, okay, well, what do you value? That's when it's like, okay, but I want to do it in a 3-day work week.
Yes,
because you value that time with your family.
Yes, because I mean, in all reality, I am not a stay-at-home mom. I don't want that job. I love my kids. I love my job. I love my work. I would not be truly satisfied just being home with my kids. But I also am like, I'm done by 3. Like, I'm going to pick up my son. I'm going to have that time with him, right? Like, I am going to spend 2 full days with my daughter. Those are the things I'm going to be able to go back, look down the road in life and look backward on and go, okay, I'm so happy I did that, right? Like, versus like, okay, I gotta dive in. I gotta build this business. It's got to be the biggest, the best, make so much money. This didn't come easy. Like, it's a lot of mindset work and intentionality and wrestling with shit. I do need more money. I do need to grow this business.
Right.
But then, do I really want to sacrifice what's going to be most important to me in order to do that? Or can I do both? Right. Those are the things that I go off of for the most part.
And then, so then how do you structure your days so that everything gets done. Because that's the thing. People are like, oh, it would be nice, because we feel like, how do I structure my days to get it all done? So people think that if we work less, then we have to settle with making less.
Yeah.
Or we work fewer days, but then we work longer days, right? Like that's, they're like the whole 4-day work week. And it's like, yeah, but working 4 10s, is that really any better than like working 8 hours days for 5 days a week? So how do you structure that time? Like what works best for you in that way, Katie?
So I kind of noticed this when I was in a corporate job. And I was
Mhm.
like, one day, like a couple times a time in my corporate career, we would have like a half day or something, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed like, oh my gosh, I get so much done in like the
Right.
first 4 hours of my day when I know that I don't have another 4 hours left to work. Uh, so truthfully, like I mean, I don't know who scheduled or structured the 9 to 5, but it wasn't women trying to make, family work or,
Mhm.
any of that. I think it was what men back in the day, right?
It
When
was
women
it
were
was it was Henry Ford.
stuff. Henry
It
Ford.
was it was Henry Ford, like a million years ago. I forget the whole story behind it. I'll remember. Keep talking. I'm like, I know, because Jess and I have talked about this. So
Yeah.
keep going, and I'll
And
remember
then
the story
with
behind it.
the intention that someone was home taking care of all of the family things, right? It
Right.
for you. So I just realized like, okay, I'm actually really productive in the morning. So again, know yourself, know when you're most productive.
Yep.
And I get my best work done in the morning. So I'm like, okay, my time block now, I got to do me. I got to do my gym. I got to do my mindset work. I got to time with God in my morning, and then I will start my day. So I'll start my work day around 9:30, 10 a.m. And
Mhm.
then I time block, right? Like if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen.
Amen.
So if I have any white space on my calendar, I have learned to figure out like what are the small stuff that I have to do, the detailed stuff that I need to do, people I need to work out, like follow up with,
Right.
and I put them in. And I structure my breaks.
Okay.
So my breaks are on my calendar as well, because if I don't have those, then they don't happen either. So
Mhm.
literally everything that I need to do is on the calendar, but I give myself grace in that if it doesn't get done, it's something that can be moved to the next day. So those, and scheduling is like not a good thing for me as far as it's not my strong suit. Um,
Right.
I had a whole mindset BS go that I had to go through because I like hated stuff on my calendar, like
Right.
hated it. And I realized that it was because I was putting the pressure of, um, I had to get it done, or if I didn't get it done, then it was a failure.
Right.
And so when I figured that out, I was like, oh, what if I'm just allowed to not get it done and I can move it and I give
Right.
myself that grace and I'm not like holding tight to this perfectionistic view of myself in the calendar, that I can commit to it and give myself the grace and freedom to restructure or move it wherever I need to throughout the week.
Yes. And I think that what you just said is so important, like starting with the idea of like knowing when your on time is, because actually somebody had just posted on social media the other day about like, you don't have to get up at 5 a.m. and like work out and journal and meditate and pray if that doesn't work for you. And I think that that's the important part, right? Like I
100%.
know mornings work for you, mornings work for me, but that's not mandatory. It's know yourself. So Jessica, who we've interviewed here on the show before, she's the marketing manager at Be in the Room. She's better at night,
Yeah.
right? Like, so she is better in the evening. I get emails from Jess at like 10, 11 o'clock at night because that's when she is best.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important part of it too. Like this whole idea of, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. to be successful, or, I have to get my workout in the morning, when you're like, no, I'd much prefer to get my workout in after I end my work day, before I go pick up the kids, because, it helps me break the space up. Like find out what works best for you. I think that's really important.
I think to piggyback off that, I think too that because we hear a lot of, I mean, what we're talking about here is creating the life you truly want and truly
Of course.
desire, right? But we also know that with anything successful comes you doing shit you don't want to do.
Amen.
So we can't, I want to just kind of speak into that too, because I think a lot of people have it in the mind of like, well, I can just have it exactly the way I want it, like when I want it, and I'm always going to feel like doing it. And it's like, no, like that's not true. Like I didn't always wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go for a walk. I literally used to be that person who would say, that is not me. I am not that 5 a.m. person. I never will be. But guess what? I also was also not working out because I couldn't find time for it. And I also was not spending time with God because I could not find time for it. So
Right.
challenging myself in the way that I am and why I prefer these things was a huge part of designing the life I really want. And that goes back to, what do I really value? Well, I value my time with my family. I value showing up for them in a present, awesome
Mhm.
way, not a
Mhm.
depleted energy, no energy,
Right.
grumpy, grouchy, snappy kind of way. Okay, well, what are the things I have to put in place in order to make sure that I am who I want to be for that day? And
Right.
what does that structure look like? And
Mhm.
that's how you end up with the life you really want to live, right?
Yes. Yes. And let's talk about what you said at the very beginning, which is like sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. And I do think that there is a misconception in the world of like ease and flow and alignment and all this other stuff, that ease and flow and alignment means never doing shit you don't want to do.
Yep.
How do you get right with those two things in your head? Because, like you said, I mean, I know alignment and joy and all of those things are core values of yours. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do we get to be joyful, but then we have to do the shit we don't want to do, like get out of bed at 4:30 in the morning? That doesn't make me happy. How do you, in your head, manage those thoughts?
Yeah, because it happens all the time. Like, like people think like, oh, well, she just naturally gets up early and it's just easy for her, and it's like, no, it's not.
Right.
I posted the other day about how like I literally did not want to walk into my gym. Like I didn't want to go. And I was just sitting in my car and I was like, I could just go back. I could work. Like I don't need to do this. And I could just go home and like, I have nothing on my plate today. I could just like binge Netflix and snack. That sounds so much better. I could be so much more aligned with that activity right now.
Right.
But then I asked myself, like, how would I feel at the end of my day if I did that?
Right.
And don't get me wrong, like, life's hard. We go through shit. Sometimes you need days like that, and I take days like that.
Of
So I'm just
course.
gonna be honest with you guys. Like, this isn't perfect.
Of course.
But I knew that, like, okay, I'm already here. If I can just get in the doors, if I could just do the first workout activity, and then, you know what? I'm just going to start by walking. If I can just get in there and warm up on the treadmill, that's my goal. So it's that 1%, right? It's the atomic habits mindset, right? Best
Right.
part. So it's like, if I can just do that, then at least I've done something today that I'm going to be proud of myself for. That's going to help me and my energy. And it's going to help me be more of the person I want to be today. Right.
Mhm.
And then of course, by the time you get in there, you're like, oh, I'm here and I'm doing the workout. And then I am in flow and then it is easy. And so, yeah, sometimes we need to give ourselves those pep talks and really pay attention to our inner voice. And is that really serving us? And if it's not, then what is? And can we challenge that?
Yeah. Yep. I love that. The question is, how will I feel at the end of the day if I do it this way, right? If I do nothing, how will I feel today? And I think that that's important too. And thank you for clarifying that, because I think that it is very important. And the reason I asked the question obviously is somewhat selfish, is I'm very much in that space of learning to not operate in my masculine, right? I'm learning to not force. I'm learning to not do all those things. But again, it's also understanding ahead of time. It's almost deciding ahead of time, like what that version of you does, right? The version of you that shows up great in your business, shows up great, shows up powerfully in your relationship, shows up powerfully with your kids. That person goes to the gym.
Yep.
And you've made that decision ahead of time so that you're not sucked down into it on the days when you feel like crap.
Absolutely. I have backup plans. So I tell like my clients to, first of all, that exercise right there, like this version of yourself, your highest version of yourself, what does she look
Mhm.
like? How does she show up for her day? How does she act as a wife? How does she act as a mom? Like, and
Mhm.
then guess what? Since we're not Stepford wives and we don't have like a computer chip in us, how the hell are you going to do that?
Right.
And so it comes down to, well, what habits do I have to have that maybe I don't want to do, that maybe I don't really feel like doing, what,
Mhm.
but is going to get me the ultimate feeling in my life so that I could show up, which is the most important part of how I want to be in my life.
Right.
And that's the key perspective. You have to start with, again, that's why Deathbed Katie comes in, is what's most important to me right now, you know?
Mhm.
And we can't go too deathbed, because you still have to live your life. So Deathbed Katie could also say spend all your money and, go,
Right.
go on a yacht, but like within reason, what's most valuable to you, and then what are the steps you need to be taking. So are you staying up too late? Are you drinking too much alcohol? What's depleting your energy? What's depleting your health? Like all of those things. And those are the tactical things that we have to put into place with habit, with routine, all of those things, right? But then again, going back to the backup plans.
Right.
So I always have like a backup plan in case I'm like, I honestly, some days I don't like routine. So for those of you who are like, gosh, I just really want to be in flow, and I really want to just be in, like, I'm just intuitive in how I live my life. And that's great, but you still have to be serving your higher self
Right.
when you're in that flow. And when we have like whatever you believe, like whether it's the enemy speaking into your ear or your own just bad habits
Mhm.
coming forward, right? Like we have to check in with ourselves and make sure that whatever we're doing is still in alignment with that highest self, which is what we're going to be proud of ourselves for living at the end of our day.
Right.
So, okay, if I don't feel like walking today, maybe I hit a yoga class early that day. If I
Right.
don't feel like if I don't feel like doing a yoga class, maybe I go out and do a workout in my yard with my daughter, because that's what I feel like doing that day. But I have backup plans so I can
Sure.
still make sure that I'm getting that done,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. And so, yeah, I feel that because I am so routine. Like I thrive in routine. I like routine. My family, we function better when we're routine. My husband and I communicate better when we're in routine, all of those things. But yeah, for those non-routine people, they do find a lot of pain in that. So I love that. If it's like, okay, workout goes on the list, and here are the 5 different ways I might get that done this day. And then that way you're not feeling so restricted by, the boundaries and the routine and all the things.
Totally.
So
Yes. Yes.
super fun. So basically, to kind of sum up our entire conversation, and I'm going to let you tell everybody where to find you, Katie, is basically what you said is I have designed a life and a business that works together beautifully by being really intentional, right? By beginning with the end in mind, going to deathbed, Katie, and then going to end of the day, Katie, and then going to like, what do I want this to look like, and designing it backwards. And I think that that is so important because, again, in a world of freedom and do all the things and build a business and make millions of dollars and be on a beach in Bali, nobody talks about the intentionality and the details and the small stuff that needs to happen that leads to growing a business in 3 days a week, that leads to always being able to pick your kids up from school, leads to always supporting your highest and best good, in all of the different ways. So while it appears to be easy and to come naturally, it's because a lot of planning and intentionality and habit development created that life.
Yes. And checking it's all knowing yourself. It's
Right.
all really truly knowing yourself. And that's the work that you got to do. And for everyone listening, this is exactly what I help women do every single day with their relationships, because they come to me thinking their relationship's is the biggest issue. And it's like, well, no, like truly, you're just not living the life you really want, and you're blaming it on him, right? Like he's your biggest obstacle in some cases, in most cases, right? And so this is like checking in with yourself, and doing all of these things for your business is not just going to make you great for your business, it's going to make you great, period, right? Because you're going to be aligned with what's most valuable for you. And ultimately, sometimes we got to do shit we don't want to do to get there, but the end game in mind, right?
Always. Awesome. Where can people learn from you, spend more time with you, learn about the way that you support your clients?
Yeah. So free group, Marriage Empowered. I'm like, which can't. Free group is Marriage Empowered on Facebook. You can follow me at Marriage Empowered on Instagram. And you can also listen to my podcast, The Katie Mae Show. And that's anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Well, Katie, thank you for your time, for sharing your expertise and the great tips. We appreciate it. And those of you watching this live, thank you for being here with us. Those of you watching this on the replay, we're excited to hear kind of your biggest takeaways, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, guys.